This has been with IV Therapy Startup 101. We've had a lot of participants in the group that have questions for an attorney. One of the questions we get is, just the legal structure of how we set up a company like this. So I guess just to start off, and for the sake of time, if you could just tell me a little bit about what you do, maybe more specifically with IV therapy or med spa type companies.
Sure. Well, my name is Wade Emmert. I'm a health law attorney based in Dallas. There are several attorneys who call themselves health law attorneys. I'm actually board certified in health law by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization, which means, I have to take a test and prove that I know what I'm talking about. But my practice has really, over the last few years, focused a lot on med spas, IV hydration, a lot of what I call retail medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And in part because I see a lot of folks who come in, they see a business opportunity, but they don't necessarily have the legal or even the medical background to know how they need to start. And so I got a lot of clients initially calling me wanting me to fix whatever it was they started
Right.
at the beginning. They now realize they had not done it the correct way.
Yeah.
And so the last few years, my practice has really developed into guiding those types of folks through the process of setting up a med spa, IV hydration, medical weight loss, laser hair removal, whatever it may be. And the good news is the process is very similar regardless of the type of medical service you're trying to provide.
Sure.
So if we set up the right way at the beginning, that really creates opportunity for people to expand and continue to grow their businesses throughout the life cycle of their company.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So you have a lot of experience with so the group is most specific to IV therapy companies, but there's a lot of med spa type or other practitioners that are looking just to add IV therapy. Okay, great. Can you explain some of the legal structures, or what are the most common legal structures or way to set
Sure.
up?
So let's start off with, Texas is unique.
Mm-hmm.
That will come as no surprise to most people. But in the practice of medicine, Texas is what is called a corporate practice of medicine state,
Mm-hmm.
or more specifically, it prohibits the corporate practice of medicine. About half the states in our nation have similar types of laws. Texas is on the more strict side
Mm-hmm.
of kind of that linear progression. And what it means is that someone who wants to provide a medical service, they have to be licensed. The owners of that business have to be licensed to provide the type of medical service their company wants to provide.
Mm-hmm.
It is not appropriate, it's not compliant to simply hire a physician as an employee to provide those services. The owners of the business themselves must be licensed to provide that service.
Mm-hmm.
So the consequence of that under the umbrella of IV hydration is pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
And what it generally means is that if you're not a medical professional, if you're not a medical doctor, then typically we have to get a medical doctor involved to co-own parts of the business. And so different models have developed that we can talk about the advantages or disadvantages of each, but for most people in IV hydration, they are not MDs. And so we end up using what's called the MSO model, or the Management Services Organization model, to make sure they're compliant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my next question. What are some of the legal requirements or best practices when contracting or partnering with a medical director? So it sounds like they can't just contract with a medical director in Texas. Like the medical director has to have some ownership in the company, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So let me also say at the outset that there are a lot of people doing this wrong, and so undoubtedly, as I'm going to talk through these structures, most of the people listening will say, well, so-and-so down the street's not doing it that way. Well, that's right. And so-and-so down the street is probably not compliant with Texas law.
Right.
There are consequences to not being compliant.
Mm-hmm.
The Texas Medical Board regulates the practice of medicine throughout the state. And if an unlicensed person is practicing medicine inappropriately or without a license, the medical board can and does issue cease and desist letters. I've had clients who own IV hydration companies get these cease and desist letters.
Wow.
And let me be clear, they weren't my clients when they set it up.
Right.
They became clients when they realized they were doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And so I had to guide them through the process of becoming compliant and then dealing with the Texas Medical Board. If you have a physician involved in an improper structure, now the physician can be penalized or disciplined by the medical board.
Right.
So there are consequences to not doing this right. But generally speaking, the structure is this. IV hydration services are medical services. That means they can only be provided through an entity that is owned by a medical doctor. Now, there are exceptions, most of which, they're very specialized exceptions. Now, for example, a chiropractor can co-own a medical practice with a physician. An optometrist can co-own a medical practice with a physician. A physician assistant, sometimes called a physician associate, can co-own a medical practice with a physician as long as they have a minority interest. However, a nurse practitioner, very similar in scope of practice, cannot co-own at all. And so and they cannot co-own any part of a medical practice, and neither can unlicensed persons. So unless you fit into those very narrow exceptions, most likely the physician will have to own the medical side all by themselves. You can't even be a minority owner in that business. And so we create or set up this structure. We will set up two different businesses. We will set up a professional medical practice, usually a PLLC, professional limited liability company, that will be wholly owned by the physician who's involved in this in the business. And then we will set up a management company that's wholly owned by the unlicensed person. And that management company essentially runs the medical practice and then pays themselves as a management fee for those management services. And that's how the unlicensed person shares in the profits of the IV hydration by paying themselves a fee that we call a management fee. There are other intricacies to that, but that's the general structure. There'll be two entities. One's a management company, one's a medical practice, and the management, the medical practice will pay the management company the fee, which is essentially the profits of the business for the management services that are being provided.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, this is good stuff. I think this will clear up a lot of confusion, or especially in Texas for sure. I know it's going to be different maybe in different states.
It is different in different states, and that's why I think there's so much misinformation and confusion. In part because you may go online and see an article that's written by even an attorney from another state, and what they're telling you may be appropriate for their state, but it's not appropriate for Texas. Every state regulates the practice of medicine according to their own laws. And Texas is a corporate practice of medicine state, and therefore there's nuances. And so what's right in one state is not necessarily right in another. Plus, you have consultants who are not attorneys and don't appreciate that there are differences, telling people one thing or another. So there's so much misinformation, and there's some people who don't even realize there's an issue at all. And so they just set up a business and start doing it. And so people are getting a lot of mixed messages. But what I'm telling you is the appropriate way to structure IV hydration businesses in Texas.
So what advice would you have for, because I know predominantly it's nurses that want to start these companies, and they're looking to partner with medical directors, or what advice would you give these people, whether they're in Texas or any state for that matter? Like, what advice would you give them when they're looking for an attorney, somebody like you who has a lot of experience in this field, which is awesome. What advice would you give them? How should they find somebody like you if they're outside of Texas, or just what advice would you have on that?
Well, let me first say, God bless nurses. I so appreciate what they do, not only for in their clinics, but just the way they advocate for patients.
Absolutely.
And so nurses are the backbone of our healthcare system, and so thank you.
I agree.
I would say, in terms of how you would go about finding an attorney, word of mouth is good. Attorneys but not every attorney has this expertise.
Right.
There are some very good attorneys in criminal law who know nothing about health law, or very good attorneys that do commercial litigation that don't really do this type of work. And so I encourage you not just to talk to an attorney, but find one who has been down this road. There are some of us out there that have done this. Secondly, I would make sure that they have an appreciation for the nuances, not just the legal structure, but the operational side of the practice. For example, even if you set up the practice, the structure properly with a medical practice and a management company, there's still operational requirements. For example, whether we're talking about IV hydration or maybe Botox, for example, the medical board has rules, and one of their rules deals with what they call non-surgical cosmetic procedures, which specifies a process that must take place when patients are seen by the medical entity. And that process is not unlike what these nurses are probably familiar with. Patients receive a good faith exam by an appropriate practitioner, usually either a physician or a mid-level. And when I say mid-level, I mean a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner. That mid-level will make an assessment and develop a plan of care and write the appropriate orders. And then typically the nurses are responsible for carrying out the plan of care, nurses and other specialized practitioners. And so that's still the process that needs to take place with IV hydration. Even if you have a physician owning the practice, it is not sufficient for an RN to simply look at the patient, ask a few questions, and then write orders pursuant to standing orders that the physician may have provided. A mid-level a physician or a mid-level needs to do a good faith exam, do the appropriate documentation in a health record, and then write the appropriate orders. At that point, the RN can administer the IV or the Botox or whatever it may be. So operationally, you need to find an attorney who can walk you through these steps. You may be 100% compliant on the structure, but still doing things wrong, and that can still land you and the physician in hot water with the nursing board or the medical board. Yeah, totally.
So how do people get in touch with you, Wade? If they're in Texas and they say, hey, I need help, how do they get in touch with you? And are you taking on new clients now?
Yeah, what I do for folks, in this position, I give a free 30-minute call. Try to answer questions.
Very cool.
Most of what we talk about typically is what we've already talked about. I'm trying to break down some misconceptions they may have. And so the best way to set up a call is to email me. Okay. And then I'll email you a link where you can select some time on my calendar that's available to schedule this call. And it'll be a call or a Zoom meeting like this.
Okay.
And let me give you my email address so people can email me if they want to set up a consultation.
Okay.
It's wemmert at ccsb.com.
Okay.
Let me spell that for you. It's WEMMERT at CCSB. That's Charlie Sierra Bravo.com. Just send me an email. I'll send you back a link, and you can get on my calendar, and we can talk through some of these issues.
What if it's somebody outside of Texas? Probably want to just focus on people that actually could use you in Texas for that 30-minute call.
If you're coming from outside of Texas, talking with me is probably not going to help you.
Right.
I can't set
right.
you outside of Texas. But I would encourage folks if, for example, lately I've gotten a lot of clients who buy into franchises that are started outside of Texas.
Sure.
Franchisors may be outside of Texas, and unfortunately, a lot of these franchisors don't appreciate the nuances of Texas law. So if you are in Texas, even if you've bought into a franchise that's outside of Texas, it might still be worthwhile giving me a call, and we can talk through how to make sure you're compliant, because there are IV hydration franchisors who are really behind the 8 ball a little bit when it comes to setting up the proper structure in Texas.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome, Wade. Hey, I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. I think this is very helpful. This is really, I think this answers a lot of questions in a lot of ways. So, thanks for your time, and really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Ben. I'm going to also send you some links to a couple of articles that I've written you can post along with this video.
That'd be awesome.
That way people can kind of see in writing what I've said.
Okay.
And that would maybe make our time together more productive.
Right. And I'll put
next steps for them.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll put all your contact information down below for anybody watching this. Everything will be posted down below, it sounds like, and with some articles. So really appreciate it. Thank you.
Very good. My pleasure. Well, good talking to you, Ben. Good talking with everyone. I look forward to working with you as we stay compliant in Texas and make money in the process.
That's right. Thanks, Wade. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
All right.